Hello, welcome, and thanks for joining me for another book chat. Today, let's spend a few minutes with Real Life by Brandon Taylor. And I just noticed that my shirt is actually matching the cover of this book. But yeah, Real Life by Brandon Taylor. This book was originally published this year, 2020, and I decided to read it because earlier on in this year, I was reading this article about, books, anticipated books coming up to be released in the first half of 2020, and this book was among them, and it really sounded really interesting to me, so I decided to put it on my reading list, and then I just decided to go ahead and get it read, which to me, I'm usually a year or so behind on, a year or two or more, or a decade behind on reading my new releases, but this time, I think it was released a couple of months ago, so pretty record time for me. But what it's about, our main character, Wallace, is an African-American gay man who is in graduate school for biochemistry in a Midwestern university. I don't think it's ever named what city he's in, but anyway, a Midwestern university for graduate school. He is from the rural South, so he had never even left the rural South before he went up to graduate school. So he finds himself up there among this group of friends. And I say friends because they're situational friends. You know how some friends are situational, meaning you either work together or you have some sort of activity that ties you all together. And that's the case with this group of friends in this book, is that they're all either part of the graduate school program or they're tied to it through another person somehow. So it's this group of friends that he is interacting with over the course of a few days, over in the late summer, over a few days. The book takes place over just this few days among this group of friends. And also the main character winds up early on in the book sort of having this unexpected relationship with another one of the friends. Some of the friends are straight and some are gay. And in this case, this particular character is straight, but develops this relationship with our main character, Wallace. And so that comes as a sort of surprise to the main character, I think. And, so we get to see that unfold a bit. Wallace, the main character, is really super introverted. And so you can sort of see this and feel this, how he feels isolated from the rest of these friends for lots of reasons. He's African American. He's the only African American among the group. He's from a different region of the country where he didn't have the same life experiences as many of these people in the group, in the friend group, and so and then he seems to be, because of his past. We learn quite a bit about his past and the scars he carries from different aspects of his past, and so He really is a person who walls himself off. He's introverted, but he's also built up some defenses around himself that we see exhibited here in this book. And I'm thinking this book, was really timely. It was an accident that I read it really during this time, but it pertains to two things that are going on right now in the U.S., and that is social isolation due to the pandemic, and then the anti-racism because of the killing of George Floyd. So these two topics, anti-racism and social isolation, are really two main topics of this book. Social isolation not in the sense of due to a pandemic or a virus, but due to other causes. Maybe we could say this is partially and largely due to the pandemic of racism in the U.S. Because he's socially isolated to some degree. He doesn't engage with the rest of the crowd easily. So I wrote down several things. So rather than I mentioned that the book takes place over several days. So during the course of these days, he develops this new relationship with another one of the characters, as well as we learn a bit about some of the other characters. They have a dinner party, they have a get-together, one as the book is opening, sort of together for beer and nachos and stuff, and then on another get-together, there's kind of like a dinner thing, they call it, where they get together kind of for a dinner party. And through these events, then we can sort of have a look on his, kind of a bird's eye look on his life. And I'll talk a bit more about the bird here in a minute. But So I mentioned about the social distancing and the anti-racism. The anti-racism, one aspect of racism is, white silence, how white people tend to not speak up sometimes when they need to. So there is a passage in the book that illustrates this. What has happened in the book is they're at a dinner party, and one of the people at the dinner party says something to our main character Wallace to the effect of he's not sort of devaluing his work in his graduate work, basically saying that he's there because he's black, not because of any ability that he would have. And at this moment, it's really illustrated really well how Wallace really feels abandoned by the rest of his so-called friends, because nobody says anything. Nobody comes to his defense. And he writes, then we come to this passage in the book. It says, Emma puts her head on Wallace's shoulder, but she won't say anything either. Can't bring herself to. No one does. No one ever does. Silence is their way of getting by. Because if they are silent long enough, then this moment of minor discomfort will pass for them, will fold down into the landscape of the evening as if it never happened. Only Wallace will remember it. That's the frustrating part. Wallace is the only one for whom this is a humiliation. He breathes out through the agony of it, through the pressure in his chest. So, this is how he's feeling after this incident at this dinner party, where he's just trying to go ahead and eat like everything is normal, but everything is not normal to him. The rest of the people in the room, the white people in the room, are just waiting for this moment to pass so that the party can resume, but it doesn't for him because he has had this little act of cruelty, not so little, but this act of cruelty, this act of unkindness sort of leveled against him right during this party, and it's not going to be okay with him. And this sort of casual cruelty that people do to each other is another common theme in the book that's throughout the book, actually, about how we do damage to each other in lots of large and small ways. And these friends really are no exceptions. And I have a quote about that as well. Let me just find that one. Wallace says, cruelty, Wallace thinks, is really just the conduit of pain. It conveys pain from one place to another, from the place of highest concentration to the place of the lowest concentration. In the same way heat flows, it is a delivery system, as in the way that certain viruses convey illness, disease, irreparable harm. They're all infected with pain, hurting each other. And this is what's going on among this group of friends, but actually it's, what's going on through the bigger picture, through really all of society, right? There's another quote about pain, the cruelty that people do, that I will also read because I thought it was really well written and just really made me feel this really strongly. And this quote says, "Did Miller really almost kill someone? Bring his cracking bones down on someone because he didn't know what to do with himself. Anger could be like that, moving from person to person like an illness or a plague. The way Wallace himself was cruel at dinner, lobbing that grenade at Vincent because of what had been said to him, or the way that telling Miller about Alabama prompted Miller to tell him about Indiana, the two of them passing cruelty back and forth like a joint. Perhaps friendship is really nothing but controlled cruelty." So I thought that was really beautifully written, and that common theme of cruelty passing around like a virus. One person gets hurt and then hurts another person because they're hurt, and then that person hurts another person because they got hurt, and so it's this cycle of cruelty in the world. So I thought that was really interesting and really kind of moving. All right, other kind of ideas that I jotted down is graduate school. So in his graduate school program, our main character Wallace has this sort of nemesis, Dana. I wish we could have gotten to meet Dana a bit more. She seems like quite a bit of a danger, though, at least to Wallace. She's sabotaging him in several ways. But there is a quote about her being gifted, and how gifted people are treated differently. Like if society decides you're gifted, or a golden boy or a golden girl. Golden in the sense, not golden girl in the sense of old or senior, but golden in the sense of a golden boy, a gifted person, then they allow for all sorts of errors and failures. Society will allow for this. And, the main character really questions, like, when is that going to be enough? Like, when is their failure so much that they're no longer gifted? And it seems like almost in many cases they never are. They can make mistake after mistake after mistake and still go on and be considered gifted or golden. So I thought that was really an interesting concept. Finally, while I was reading this book, I also watched the movie The Purple Rose of Cairo. So, have you guys ever seen that movie? So what this movie is, it's from the 80s, 1985. It's a Woody Allen movie. Jeff Daniels is in it, Mia Farrow. So the Mia Farrow character is this housewife in New Jersey, very unhappy life. This is during the Depression. She finds escape in movies, and so she goes to this local movie theater and watches movies over and over. And she's at this particular movie that stars Jeff Daniels, is in the movie, and eventually he comes out of the screen and joins her and sort of escapes the movie then and becomes part of the movie we're watching. So it's a movie within a movie in a way. But there's a couple of quotes I was reading this book about real life. What is real life? And there's a couple of sort of ideas from that movie that I thought were really cool. I wrote down watching the movie, people are reliable in movies. You don't find that in real life. So that comes from The Purple Rose of Cairo. People are reliable in movies. You don't find that in real life. And Jeff Daniels says at one point in The Purple Rose of Cairo, what good is perfect if the man is not real? What good is perfect if the man is not real? So I thought those were really cool. And it's really cool to think about, what's real life? Our characters think about this some. Is this real life? Is graduate school real life? Was his life back in Alabama real life? What is real life? And the bird here, I always think about, what is the title? What is the symbolism on the covers? Because I feel like the designers who design covers usually put something there for a reason. So there's a lot of bird imagery in this book, and I thought about it as the birds are above everything, and they see everything in this sort of big picture. And the author makes a point here. Wallace thinks about how birds see things from up high, where it's just everybody bumping into each other at a society level. But then, you come down and you just see one little bird. The bird sees one little area. So we see this one little group of friends and see the sort of the injustices and the unkindnesses and the cruelties that they do to each other. So that was my take on the reason for the bird symbolism on the cover. Real life, like I said, I think it pertains to, just what is real life? Think about that. If you think school's not real life, when is your life real, actually? And ultimately, I think life is always real. So, Real Life by Brandon Taylor. So glad I got it read. I did enjoy it. It for about the first half, you have to listen. The way I read a book is I listen for the book to tell me what it's trying to tell me, to listen to what the book has to say to me. And it took me about halfway through this book before I started hearing this book, I think. So very good, though. Very good read. All right, so I'm out of time. My next book chat is going to be Gods of Jade and Shadow by Silvia Moreno-Garcia. I will have a chat on this coming up fairly soon. So until next time, take care. Bye-bye.